For my independent study unit, I decided to study The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. This classic novel was published in 1951, yet is still immensely popular today. This story commences with the main character, Holden Caulfield, being expelled from his esteemed private school. Not wanting to go home but not wanting to stay at school, he chooses to stay in New York for a few days. While there, Holden faces and experiences many absurd situations in just 2 days within the city. He finally finds the courage to return home and confront his problems. In general, I thoroughly enjoy The Catcher in the Rye. I feel as if the story has a remarkably intriguing storyline, as well as many interesting details incorporated throughout. Salinger uses several of the most popular themes and ideas, allowing his novel to stay a wonderful American classic. At times, I found certain parts to be a bit repetitive, as well as I wish there was greater clarity. Many themes are prevalent in The Catcher in the Rye, yet the most predominant theme is the loss of innocence. Throughout the novel, this theme can be shown mainly through Holden's obsession with Jane, his anger towards swear words engraved on the wall, and his observation of Phoebe on the carousel. Since the beginning of the story, Holden has a remarkably strong obsession with Jane Gallagher. At first, it's unclear how Holden knows her, but she is talked about progressively more and more throughout the book. Holden's roommate at Pensy, Stradlater, introduces Jane's character by telling Holden he's taking her on a date. This deeply affects Holden, as he knows what type of a man Stradlater is, and knows that he had made a move on Jane. Holden proceeds to fight Stradlater about this, causing him to leave Pensy and start his journey. Later it's discovered that Holden used to have feelings for Jane, stating, "The girls I like the best are the ones I feel like kidding. Sometimes I think they'd like if you kidded them. In fact, I know they would, but it's hard to get started. Once you've known them for a pretty long time and never kidded them." This was referring to their innocent and immature relationship. As Holden also says, the farthest they had gone was holding hands. Knowing this reveals why Holden had reacted this way towards Stradlater and Jane, as Holden sees her as a young girl and wants to protect her purity. Despite attempting to get with older women, Holden continues to only think about his unadulterated relationship with Jane, displaying his fascination with protecting their innocence. As Holden drops off a note for Phoebe at school, he notices the F word engraved on multiple walls. He lectures to himself, saying, "It drove me damn near crazy. I thought how Phoebe and all the other kids would see it, and they'd wonder what the hell they meant, and how they would all think about it and maybe even worry for a couple of days." This represents the loss of innocence, as Holden isn't upset about seeing the word or vandalization of the school, but rather is disturbed that children will see it. He feels as if the adult world is corrupt and horrible and wants to protect these children against it. By seeing this word, Holden believes it will contribute to them losing their youth. A final example is Holden watching his sister Phoebe ride the carousel. Phoebe is an important part of Holden's life, as her aura of innocence she gives off greatly affects her brother. While he observes her going around, he states that all the kids kept trying to grab for the gold ring, and so was old Phoebe, and I was sort of afraid she would fall off the goddamn horse, but I didn't say or do anything. The thing with kids is if they want to grab the gold ring, you have to let them do it. The gold ring is a metaphor for the risks of life. As children reach for them, it shows them reaching for their dreams, hopes, and ambitions. Adults must allow their kids to reach for these goals alone, even if that means watching them fall in order for them to mature and achieve. Despite Holden being afraid, watching her, he knows he can't do anything about it. Holden finally accepts that in order to protect children from their loss of innocence, they must take risks and mature on their own. While many important themes were demonstrated throughout the novel, I feel as if the loss of innocence is the superior one. The loss of innocence is a theme that everyone's society goes through, yet it isn't portrayed strongly in the media. In today's era, the social media is impossible to avoid. Starting at an extremely young age, social media is available to anyone, no matter what age, resulting in children as young as 6 utilizing it. Many news articles have discussed this topic, one stating the effects of too much information, much of which is delivered via an unregulated internet, and goes on to say, the result is that we have an epidemic of mental illness as children struggle with too much information or too much too soon. This article is referring to the unrestricted internet as adolescents are able to access mature subjects such as violence, sex, and substance abuse. Starting from an early young age, this information can have extremely negative effects on children, as it's far too premature for them. This can lead to many negative factors for children's overall losing their innocence. This is a highly interesting topic that is discussed very often. I feel as if the media doesn't portray this theme sufficiently, but here are a few discussion questions surrounding this issue. How do you think Holden Caulfield truly lost his innocence? Why do you believe the loss of innocence isn't portrayed commonly in the media? Should children in society be protected against their loss of innocence? Why or why not? Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed my ISU presentation on The Catcher in the Rye.